Hi Lara, welcome back. Welcome to Cyprus, welcome back to the podcast. You had 140k followers, now it's at 210k. What's changed?
I sleep less, I work more. My younger self would kill me if I stopped and if I didn't do things that were new or scary, because those things will always lead to the better outcome that I'm actually looking to achieve. People hate LinkedIn right now. It's not that LinkedIn is bad, you're making it bad for yourself. They do not talk about their offer enough, they don't talk about what they're doing enough, and they don't talk about what they're selling enough and what it does for people.
What do the best people do when it comes to their visual hook?
You're posting selfies that look like you don't take yourself seriously, then how is your ideal customer going to take you seriously? There's two elements that people don't realize, and that's packaging and positioning. If you manage to nail the packaging between the photo and the first two lines, then obviously you're gonna get the buy-in that you want.
I think you do it really well where you talk with the audience rather than at them. How do you do that? Hi Lara.
Hey.
Welcome back.
Thank you. Well, welcome. Thank you for having me in Cyprus.
Welcome to Cyprus. Welcome back to the podcast. Many welcomes. So what's changed since last time? Last time we chatted was around February, March. You had 140k followers. Now it's at 210k. What's changed?
I sleep less. I work more. I have less friends. And I've just grown the business a little bit more. But realistically, nothing has changed. And I think that's fine. Consistently, I think entrepreneurs are looking for ways to elevate and grow. And there is no patience for the present moment and keeping momentum going. And I think I'm very proud that I've been able to keep that going, because so many people just lose it. They drop the ball. They forget of the fundamentals. And I practice what I preach when it comes to do the same thing every day and it'll work.
When you get to a certain size, I feel like people will paint their own picture of you. And I think from speaking to you, that's happened. So what do people misunderstand about you the most?
I honestly think people think I'm a dick or like I have a massive resting bitch face. Like even my profile photo is quite serious. And then when people meet me, they're like, oh, she's actually quite nice. Or like, oh, she's actually funny. Yeah. That's what people misunderstand. They think the perception of me online, as per everything I do, is just very serious, very straight to the point, probably a little bit too blunt. But in reality, I'm just a nice person, I think. Would you not agree?
Yeah, I think you're a nice person. Yeah. But why do you think you do that? Because you said it's a conscious choice, that you are to the point, right?
100%. I talk about this. I spoke about this a little bit with your girlfriend yesterday, and being a woman in business is completely different than being a man. And I try to walk the line between being feminine and being a girl boss or like an entrepreneur. And unfortunately, just naturally in society, we treat females differently than men. And I am subjected to 10 times more judgment based on my looks. And if I am a decently attractive female, people will perceive my beauty first besides my intellect. And when I've had that realization, I could do two things. I could try to change the entire way society behaves, or I could just change how I try and portray myself. And unfortunately, that meant taking away a lot of like my personality and even photos for like lifestyle and individual things that I like doing and saying and talking like, to just focus on the thing that I wanted to be known for. And that was my intellect. That's always something that I've been super conscious about. And that's to the sacrifice of authenticity and being myself. But I'm still very much myself, just not through my content, but maybe in the comments or in live streams or in webinars, which is why I like the models that we've created with the cohorts and the courses, because people get to see this other side of me. Venturing onto YouTube has also allowed me to have this different side of me. They're like, oh, they can hear me speak. They can see how I like talk, my mannerisms, how I dress, and even like some subtle jokes.
Yeah, I find that in the content that you're doing, you have text, you have different formats, and you don't have to have everything kind of tick every box. Like I think the way you said the video and the live streams, you can bring more of that character. I think that's fine, because that's how I actually kind of signed up to the first cohort a year ago. Was I was following your content for a while. I was like, oh, actionable steps, amazing. I was using them as reference for some of my posts back then. But then I saw you on a webinar. I was like, human, cool. Take on money.
I love that. Yeah, that's actually why I decided to go all in on video this year, after realizing how much people loved the live streams and not just the content, I was like, oh my God, okay. Then I just doubled down and then tripled down, and now I'm like 10x video.
It's community. I think the back and forth is really important. And I think, just from outside looking in, it is still authentic the way you do in posts, because you talk about, you have different versions. Like, I think one thing I want to just tell you, like the picture posts that you do, maybe, because I just want to mention the point, like I ghostwrite and I have 2 which are female, and that point you made about how women get judged more, I knew that at the back of my head 2 years ago, but now I know it. Like, it's
yeah,
real. Like, you see it.
It's like it's a hidden thing. It's a hidden cost. And you're like, surely not. Like, you're aware of it, but like, because most of us, like, it depends on who you are as well.
Yeah.
Like, entrepreneurs are way more aware, more respectful. We see actual success and we're proud. But people just see something else and they're like, they point out that thing. They're cheating, they're pretty, they bought their way in, they're like sleeping with this guy, they had this thing and that's why they're doing that. No, they could not just be good at the thing. It has to be something else.
Yeah, I think it's, some people just jump to, there's a reason they have success, which isn't the obvious one, which is do the work.
Yeah.
So I think if you always just think, they did it because they did the basics, that's a better mindset, because even if that's not true, that would then push you to do the work. That's the way I see it. So I want to go into a bit about your launch, because it was very, very successful. Biggest referral here.
Yeah.
So it was a very big launch. And when I saw it happen, it was going on for like a good couple of weeks and kept changing. So there was a lot of energy that put into that. So first, congrats.
Thank you.
And like, how did you celebrate? Did you do that alone, with fam?
Honestly, yeah, I was very happy. I flew to Miami in the middle of launch because I had a podcast set for the end and I was sleep deprived. I was working on the plane back and forth. And I said this on another podcast, but I've been celebrating every single win on my own, like since I literally left Mexico when I was 15. Graduating, most of it has been on my own. My parents could not just be that at every single point. And for the first time in my entrepreneurship time, after 3 years, I was finally able to celebrate something with my parents. And the day launch closed, I showed my mom the final result, how many people were talking about it. And we I started jumping on the bed because we were in a hotel and she came with me. And my mom is very emotionless. She's very blunt, very much like me, but 10 times more. And having that moment to share with her and being like, it works, it's working. Everything that I've done from 15 to now, it's actually resulting onto something that we can be like, okay, she's got it now. Was amazing. And I can't wait to do it again.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I would say I am having that moment because people are telling me to celebrate and I'm just going a little bit through the motions because I started the business in April, hit decent figures, and then everyone's like, bro, what you built is really cool.
Yeah.
But then I'm just like,
you
I'm just month to month.
I think that's good. Honestly, I think there's just it's a line. People are like, celebrate the small wins, but also why? My question is, why am I celebrating something when I can do something way bigger? I think people get distracted with the celebration, oh, I just hit 10,000 followers, celebration, 15,000, celebration, first 10K, celebration, 20K. So it's no, you have to keep it going. For me, celebrating just one big milestone and then forgetting about it is better. Otherwise, you get stuck in this ego, oh, I have to chase this outcome and do this. I'm like, no, just repeat. I always say success is rented, never owned. And you have to literally just earn your spot every single time. And I think when I celebrate too much, when I did it, I just did it to show off and put it on social media, oh my God, I just did this. And then if I'm just quiet, working, having my private victories that no one sees, then the bigger one is better at the end because no one sees it coming.
Yeah, I think it's a noise thing, right? If you do 10 celebrations, then the 7th celebration won't get as much attention if you just did one. So I think, like you said, save the celebrations for the stuff that's important to you, and obviously do your mini celebrations. Mm-hmm. I think that makes sense. If we make it practical as well, I think I see what you're saying, where some people celebrate a post doing well, and then make a post about that. And if your niche is LinkedIn growth, I understand if you did a breakdown and gave some value. I think for the average person, put in the work and do the value, right? Is what we should be going for.
Yeah. It depends. Obviously, when I was like still growing, I'd celebrate everything. But then there comes a realization and a point where it's like, am I celebrating the thing or am I just showing off? And like, am I doing the work to get to the next level instead? Like, where's your energy best spent?
Yeah. What's the difference? If you do the celebration showing off, like what makes a good celebration if we take it to like LinkedIn content?
So when people celebrate a client, like that's good because it's all about, for me, unfortunately, it's all about positioning. If you're celebrating the small wins, like, oh my God, I just got invited to speak at this event that I'm not getting paid for and I having to fly myself out, it makes you look like a rookie, like an amateur. And ideally you want to be looking like, you know what you're doing. You're like getting the big bucks for it. You're like, it's not like you're excited to be there. It's like you deserve to be there. It's like a very small nuance. I learned this from my mentor, Richard Moore. And it's like, we see all these people celebrating all of these things, but it makes them look too excited about the thing when you should be looking like, yeah, like I do this all the time. Like you don't see Stephen Bartlett celebrating every single milestone they hit. Like they just hit 1 billion streams on Spotify or something. That's worthy of celebrating, but they weren't celebrating all the way until then. He doesn't celebrate going to events. He just shows up and then talks about it after, which is, it depends on like what stage you are. Obviously at the start, you have to celebrate yourself, to put yourself forward, then like hype yourself up. But then over time it evolves.
Yeah, I think the way you just described, where you do it after the event, and if you break it down and make it actionable, that's what I did. I got invited to an event and my post wasn't about, hey, I went to an event, thank you so much.
So here's what I did.
I was like, here's how I prepared, just in case anyone else interesting. Everyone's like, oh wait, great. Congrats on the event.
Yeah.
Even though I didn't celebrate it.
Yeah.
I think that's the small tweak you can make and it's a big difference.
It's like positioning tweak. Like, it's like, I'm not here to talk about the thing. I'm talking about me and how I did that thing.
Yeah, exactly. So if we come back to the launch, what made a launch a success? If we're looking to talk to people who are doing their own launch, whether it's tiny or as big as yours, what goes into a launch? Like, what's the first step?
I think there's 3 key elements to a successful launch: storytelling, content, and FOMO. Okay. And an irresistible offer as well. So the majority of our revenue came from email this time around.
Okay.
It wasn't from live streams or anything, but it's very hard to kind of like set where all this traffic is coming from. But email converted the most people. The most successful emails were stories. If you talk to a typical marketer, they'll tell you that the things that convert the most are case studies, testimonials, and results-oriented emails. But for me, it was the complete opposite, which just goes to show how I built my own brand. And it's just like the non-standard way of like, it's not a direct to consumer brand. It's not a direct response brand. It's a very much storytelling led personal brand, obviously. And so the stupidest content that I posted was like, oh, I dropped 200 pounds on my foot. That email converted so much. I just had to reread it like 3 times because it was a story leading about me being a powerlifter, how I dropped some weight on my foot, and then how that just then turns into how much you want to consistency, all of these things, and they're sold, right? That was crazy. As opposed to, oh, here's Harry, here's how much Harry has grown, bye. Like no one really actually looked at that, which was crazy. Then the second thing is consistency in content. People get scared of promoting themselves online, and I think that's the number one problem people have on LinkedIn. They do not talk about their offer enough. They don't talk about what they're doing enough, and they don't talk about what they're selling enough or what it does for people. Because we have this thing that we speak about things all the time. We think that people think that, but they don't know. I can't remember the last post I read online. I can't remember your third post that you posted this week. I can't remember some of them. I know what you do, but doesn't mean that I know exactly what you do or what you offer. With launches, I put it in the back of my head, in the front of my head. You need to sell yourself. Like that's why I love the launch model as well, because it allows me to have this like really spread big time weeks of selflessly, ruthlessly promoting myself, and then I shut up and I don't promote anything ever again. So it was me being on top of everyone. Like, here's my product, first post, here's my product again, second post, for 5 days. That's what makes it the most successful, because it drives awareness. It also makes the people that are ready, there's like 3 types of people. The ones that want to buy, the ones that are on the fence, and then the ones that don't even know that I have a product to sell, right? So then creating content for all these type of people, one that solves a problem, one that talks to a pain, and one that introduces the problem to them is very important. So having like, I guess, top, bottom of and middle of funnel content works, but it has to be consistent and it has to be in their faces, so much so that you're scared that they're going to unfollow you, because otherwise it doesn't work.
So this is when you're selling the launch period, because it's interesting because you've told me before, don't sell in your content constantly. But the way I hear it, when it comes to your strategy, because you've bought in all that goodwill of not selling, you can afford to do the launch. And also, for anyone who's not seen that launch, it was still value-led. You still gave insights, and you still gave like snacks as well. Like you made, like, here's like part 1, here's part thing. So I think that is also a big element. And also, it was variety. Yeah, you had videos, you had live stream, you had normal content, you had those stories. So I think you can sell on everyone, but I think it's the audience fatigue. I think you really avoided that by doing all those variety.
I think I still did fatigue my audience, but at the end of the day, I earned it. And that's what's important. Like, I hit emails so hard. I know people unsubscribed, but if people aren't unsubscribing or unfollowing you, then you're doing it wrong. And that's something I took from Jake and Melina, because like, if you're not promoting yourself that ruthlessly, so much so that someone is like, shut up, then you're doing it wrong. And like, I had to grow out of my fear of being judged and disliked, because if I'm giving all of this value for free every single day, literally giving my entire playbook every single day on YouTube as well, long form, short form, webinars, all of it, and people get upset because I'm trying to sell something, then there's something wrong with them, and it's not me. And with the stories, obviously, the education, the time I spend creating the carousels, infographics, all of these videos, then I'm like, I earn the right. But the small caveat there is always lead with a story. Every single one of my posts, no matter what it is, whether I'm selling or I'm writing an email or I'm just telling a story, there has to be some sort of like emotional involvement between me and the audience. This has been probably one of my biggest secrets when it comes to LinkedIn content. How can I get them to see themselves in me? The posts are never about me. They're always about them. And that's what people get wrong with content in launches or overall just in storytelling. We talk too much about ourselves that we forget who we're talking to.
I think you do it really well where you talk with the audience rather than at them.
Yeah. Thanks.
How do you do that? So, because I've seen it in other people's content, I try to do it with myself, but I have a situation where I might write the whole story while I'm writing the post, and I'm like, okay, 80% is just me. I need to bring the person in. But I feel like you bring in the person in like maybe on the 3rd, 5th line sometimes. I still probably more around 50%. Can you tell me more about how you talk with the audience?
So the Slay framework has helped. I tweak it a lot. I don't use it every single day, but it's the same kind of like thing.
What is the Slay framework?
So the Slay framework is you start with a story, lead with a lesson, do actionable piece of advice, and end with a you. So ideally, your content should be between 500 words and 800 words long. That's just my style of making it snackable and easy to read. I start with a story, the first 2 lines. So I just flew all the way to Cyprus to meet one of my academy members. Here's exactly what we did during our podcast.
So that's the story. That's it.
Yeah.
You don't need to go into the whole I went on the plane. It's literally
because
a sentence.
We get confused with storytelling as in the actual storytelling lesson when it comes to films, books, etc. And that's why so many storytellers and writers that come to LinkedIn hate LinkedIn, because the art of writing is kind of lost because we have to cut to the chase and we forget all like these little nuances and things that make stories really good. So I just cut to the chase. I give the main insight, like what are we doing? What's the context and why it's important to someone to read? So I just flew to Cyprus. I just flew 2,000 miles from London to Cyprus to meet a client. Okay, that's interesting. What do you do? And I'm also giving him $200,000 in hand.
Let's go. Yeah, where is it?
That's some billion money. And then that, okay, see your reaction. Then that's exciting. And then most people wouldn't do this for their clients, but I do. because it's worth it. And here's how to build a community that creates blah, blah. That's the lesson, right? And then if you see how seamlessly I just went from thing that I'm doing, very unique, to thing that interests them, then how to, and then I'm going to turn it into a lesson and then a you. That creates this idea that people are getting to know me while they're learning something. And I always think, I'm a TikTok addict. Like, I literally love TikTok so much. So why is it so addicting? Because it's snackable, it's short, and we can rewatch it again, and we find it very interesting because it's either educating us or entertaining us. So it's the same with written content. Obviously, it's a little bit harder because you need to tweak your words and make them short and concise. But at the end, after you practice that enough times, you'll be able to do that.
So when you're starting out, you're a small creator, you don't want to be a copycat. What do the best small creators do?
Okay. Right. You said copycat. And the thing is, the best artists always copy. No, never copy, always steal, right? That's the quote by Austin Kleon. You need to be copying someone in order to be good, but like not for a prolonged time period. So I started off by emulating people, but then around month 3 and month 4, I found my way. Because like you start kind of like being similar to someone just as your line, but then you have to branch out of that. And then you start finding your unfair advantage. So what can you do better than most people can? Or like, what can you talk about for hours? That is your main area of expertise. So even if you're not an expert, which is the main problem with beginners, are like, I'm not an expert, I don't have a degree, I don't have like a job, I don't have this. You're still an expert. You're still more of an expert than someone that doesn't know as much as you do about something. So even when I was starting with marketing, I knew less than the PhD marketer and someone that has had 10 years of experience, but I knew more than my mum. Right? So that to me was important enough to be like, okay, I can teach someone how this hook on TikTok helped me stay retained and why I followed them. And then over time, the more I explain those things about other people, which is called content curation, and you're talking about someone else in your own words, then you learn what they're doing and you apply it to yourself. That is the pinnacle of what makes a good creator, because you're learning as you're like writing about it and then you're implementing it for yourself. So every single creator right now that's struggling to grow, they need to identify what can they teach so specifically every single day that helps them learn about it as well during the process. And then they apply it back to themselves. And eventually it starts like this wheel of them learning and doing, not just like learning, and then doing eventually. That is the main thing. Then when you become an expert, you need to obviously use the right writing frameworks, okay? No matter if it's LinkedIn content or SEO or AI, content still needs to be readable, skimmable, and interesting to read. So that starts with a hook, rehook, slate framework, back to it, actionable advice, and then it has to be really good, really well formatted. Otherwise, people don't read it. The majority of the experts that I see online, they're so good. We've got Rory Sutherland, amazing marketer, all these people. But when I see their content, I can't read it. It's illegible to me because I am on social media. I am not reading a book. I want to be entertained. Unfortunately, that's how social media networks work. And then if we encapsulate what are you good at better than anyone else, and you knowing how to write a good hook, how to format it well, you're going to win regardless, as long as you keep on showing up, obviously.
I think that word social media is what people need to remember. Like, it's social media, so it needs to be entertaining and start conversations.
Yeah.
And that like read like a book thing, it resonates, because I've actually been toying with this. I found that you can get away with big paragraphs if the hook and the image are perfect.
Yeah.
And an example is, I had a client who recently came back from an event and she sent me a voice note of the event and what she learned. I just said, just came back from this very cool event, 2 things I learned, then 2 fat paragraphs. But because of the start of that story, it's like, oh, I want to find out. Then I can read it, and then I can read it. But I've framed it. I didn't start with the paragraph where you see it somewhere. I think when you really look into it, social media, you need to make sure it's entertaining and like, okay, kind of come back to what we said before. Can I get the buy-in before I write it in this certain way? Otherwise, like you said, it needs to at least flow.
Yeah, I was talking to Sam about this, and I wrote an email. most people are forgetting how to think logically online and what makes good content. People sort of seem to forget how they consume content, and that's how I lead. How I'm consuming content is how I want to produce it. There's two elements that people don't realize, and that's packaging and positioning. The packaging is what you spoke about, where is the first two lines and the photo. That emulates the YouTube experience of someone clicking on a thumbnail and the title, right? Every social media goes it's like synergetically the same thing, just in a different format. And so if you manage to nail the packaging between the photo and the first two lines, then obviously you're gonna get the buy-in that you want. But most people, because they have a very big ego, and they're like, I'm not gonna, go down to these like tacky hooks or like clickbaity things. I want to talk about the real value. And it's like, your ego is getting in the way of you actually delivering the value that you so much want to have, but in a different way. It's so much better. Overall, it's a net benefit to every single person if people know how the packaging works and then deliver the hours of value. The best example is Alex Osmosi. Alex Osmosi recently switched from very much fast-paced animated videos to videos of him in conferences. But the first 3 minutes of the video is him being sat down in a studio, giving people the hook. So they stay, and then he then goes and transitions to the actual keynote event, which is like, raw, unfiltered, whatever. But the first 3 minutes is him talking about the hook. The video has a thumbnail that's not in him like on stage looking weird. It's him like with a face that actually makes people want to click. The image is right, and the video, the title of the video is like how to do X and Y, So, and it's an ego thing, unfortunately. All founders have it, all entrepreneurs have it, every single person has it, because if you've been in the industry for so long, starting to play a game again of like having to scale up, it's annoying, obviously, if you've already hit your first 7 figures, 8 figures, whatever. But it's a game. Social media is a game, and people do forget about it. LinkedIn is the biggest game of all, and it's almost like a game of cards. And I absolutely love having every single card in my deck, playing it right every single time, and then winning. But it's not for everyone.
Yeah. The message and the wrapper are different things. Yeah. And I think people know they have a good message because, like you said, in the offline world, they've managed to get a certain success. But then that doesn't earn them a right to just present message and hope it just goes off, because it's social media. And I think one big thing people forget is they're not writing for their current audience. If they already knew you, then you might not need a hook once you get to a certain size. But most people are writing for people who don't know them. So how can, like you said, they're scrolling. Alex Hormozi, what do they say? I've made 100 million. Let me tell you how I did it. It's like, okay, click see more.
Click.
And then you go.
Yeah.
So whatever you can say to get them into the door. I think you used the word tacky hooks. I think there are tacky hooks and they're just good hooks. The hooks that I've seen you do, I think you could make them more tacky if you wanted to. That makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. I could make them so much clickbaity. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, I think like saying the harsh truth about X. I've done that a few times. That isn't tacky, but it is provocative. And you want to see the opinion. And then after that, you can deliver the message as you wish. I think just separating the packaging and the message and just making sure like it's not demeaning the message if we need to put some effort into the packaging.
100%.
Yes.
Love it.
Visual hooks are critical. I find your visual hooks, you've got the video, which is the start. You have the kind of quote and then a picture of you. That's your style. When you're looking at your academy members, what do the best people do when it comes to their visual hooks?
The best academy members, they realize what I said about positioning so quickly. It is about how you're being perceived, and they take care of their appearance first. One thing that I did so wrong when I was starting my LinkedIn journey is that I was being the typical cliche Gen Z, trying to take a selfie from down up, or like being like this or like that, like just being so chilled like we are. We're like, oh, I don't care about how I'm being perceived.
What's wrong with that?
If you're on LinkedIn, getting business, trying to, land your first 5-6 figure deal, and you're posting selfies that look like you don't take yourself seriously, then how is your ideal customer going to take you seriously? And it's a very hard lesson because we, again, as a generation and overall as personal branding, it's all about being authentic and being yourself. and how you can be you and still make money. Yes, but no. Like there comes a line where like you have to sacrifice some authenticity for business. Because again, you can do that on Instagram, fine, go to Instagram, but LinkedIn, it is not Instagram. People get that so wrong because they try and treat it like it is another cutesy, authentic storytelling platform. It is, but it's not. It's still business. We're still in the like trying to promote ourselves to a majorly older demographic, right? And if we can't do that right, then we're losing a lot of like, firstly, traction, and then secondly, credibility. For me, making that switch between being this like cute uni girl that was like trying to figure it out to I know my shit, buy it, very big difference. And that's how I've grown so quickly. That's how I have such a variety of clients, because I can inspire the Gen Z girls or Gen Z guys that are looking for that relatability, but I can also appeal to all the people that are looking for someone young, but that takes themselves seriously and that knows what they're doing. So that's what they do. Like the ones that do it right understand that. The ones that do it wrong just consistently post selfies or like copy paste their infographics. They try and replicate the infographics that work, but because they're replicating it and they don't understand how they actually work, they get it wrong. A fast case in hand would be the Twitter screenshot. Like it's so simple, but people get it so wrong because they don't understand why it's working.
Tell me.
Logically, as Twitter screenshot, it's obviously Twitter screenshots work on LinkedIn for some reason, naturally because it acts as a visual hook without having to use your face. The visual hook is the things that you're talking about. So, harsh truth about LinkedIn, you won't grow if you're not telling a story, right? Simple, straight to the point. However, the way it's laid out is very much like white space around your photo here, name here, title here. People then start adding emojis or like a photo underneath, a call to action here, and it becomes too crowded. They see the thing working, but they replicate it wrong. Like the actual delivery of it is wrong because again, they haven't understood why it works in the first place. And I think most marketers, beginners, and most people get it wrong because they see the thing working, they try and replicate it, but in that process, they lose the thing that makes it work, which is either its simplicity, its actionability, or like how it just looks. So that's one thing. Same with infographics. Like we see infographics, TED Talks that went viral, all of these things work, but it works because they're in a sequence. Visually, they're aligned for someone to consume them very quickly. Unfortunately, when people try and then recreate that, it becomes either too crowded, the word is wrong, the fonts are like too hard to read, and then this they ignore the graphic design things. And again, not everybody would understand this because not everybody's a graphic designer. Not everybody has had ages looking at marketing, so it is hard. We make it seem very easy because it is simple, but it's not easy. Like it's so simple to talk about TED Talk. It's so simple to post a tweet. But it's not easy because you need to understand why it's easy.
Yeah, I think the legibility, the simplicity, and I think you said something about an infographic being too crowded. For me, I use the word mental energy. Like how much mental energy do I need to know if this is going to be worth my time?
Yeah.
And I think a visual hook, if you can just make it 1 second, like, this is a very well put together photo with a cool hook. Let me see what they have to say. Mm-hmm. Or this is a interesting quote. Let me see what this person has to say. I think it's just making it really clear this is going to be valuable content.
Mm-hmm. Same with photos of ourselves. Like they're still visual hooks. And if the visual hook doesn't work with the actual text hook, then you're disappointing your audience. Mm-hmm. So oftentimes then people use selfies or photos that don't align with the message, like 10 hacks to grow your real estate business. And it's a selfie of someone in the beach. It doesn't make sense. It's not aligned to the messaging. And again, then people get lost. It's like, why is it not working? I'm doing exactly what you said. Yes, you are, but the way you're doing it is still wrong. Because even if I tell you, okay, write a good hook with an image, and then they write a good hook with an image, maybe the image is high quality, is professionally taken, but if it doesn't align with the message, then it's not going to work because you're confusing your audience.
Yeah, I think for me, like when I'm looking at my clients, some of them are selfies, but it's when they tell stories.
Yeah.
Because if you're saying a personal story, like, I'm going to now hear Lara talk to me and I can see her face. Mm-hmm. I can right there. if you're not telling a story and you give an advice and then selfie, that's where there's a bit of a disconnect, I feel. Because you're like, okay, thanks. But if it's a story, it's like, okay,
Yeah.
hear what they have to say.
I have this number one rule for LinkedIn stories is I only use photos of me when I'm storytelling. Otherwise, I am not.
I try to use that with all my clients as well.
Yeah.
It works. It works. You recently went on stage, different chapter of your life, and you did a post this week, which I found interesting because I didn't believe that, which was
great.
You have imposter syndrome.
Yes.
Tell me about that, because everyone feels this, not only with content, of course, but with also the public speaking. So what's been your experience with imposter syndrome, and what would you tell?
You know what's
Lara?
funny? Every time I post something like that's remotely vulnerable, I either get a lot of pity, which is why I don't do them, or people are like, you're lying. Last year on a cohort call, this guy was like, he called me out. He's like, oh, surely not. Because it's like, everybody sees me. The hook was like, everybody sees me succeeding, but inside I feel like I'm failing. And I just opened up about, again, imposter syndrome. This was a year ago. And they're like, no, you didn't. Like, of course you don't.
They're saying that you're using that for
or
content?
Like, yeah, like I'm either making it up or like I feel like I'm failing and I don't. I do. Every single day I still struggle with imposter syndrome. I've always struggled with anxiety. And I'm able to mask it because I outwork myself to the point where I'm so tired mentally, I cannot feel the stress. And this is a common thing with entrepreneurs, where the majority of entrepreneurs were incredibly self-aware, we're very anxious, and we have like image issues. Alex Murphy said this and I couldn't agree more. Like, that's why we're always working. I found the hack to not go to therapy, make money, and not think about my issues, and that is work. And so when it comes to doing new things, like, I don't know, people see me like at this, but I will always feel inferior because I just have this complex in my head simply because of that. And when it came to speaking, people think that I've been doing this for ages is just because of how I carry myself. Luckily enough for me, I've been able to practice a lot. You know, I have speaking coaches and everything else. And that's just generally because I put a lot of energy into how can I be the best marketer that I can. But that doesn't mean I'm not scared. I'm scared every single day about everything I do because it's new. Even posting on LinkedIn, I'm scared. I'm like, oh my God, I hope they like this. Like, I'm like, does this still work? Because I love the thing that I do. I don't take it for granted. I never take anything for granted. Like, anything could be taken away from me like this. And so it is that combination of knowing that everything could go in a day, understanding that I'm still like in year 2 of my business growth, which is like, okay, sit the fuck down. Like, Lara, like, chill. Like, I'm not too big for my boots and I will never act like that. And then with the stage thing, well, I've never spoken on stage in English to that many people. I was very scared. Yasmin was speaking next to me. He's like got 10 years of experience on me, Fortune 500 copywriter, Microsoft, all of these things. And I'm like, hi, I just graduated university. Somehow I managed to be here in the same stage as all these people that have all this experience. Obviously, I'm going to feel a little bit scared. That's just like I know
human experience.
It's just like, yeah. And so again, back to your first question, I think that's what people get so wrong about me, that they think that I have this like either very big ego or like complex or like God complex, that I know what I'm doing at all times. But realistically, I'm just very aware of, hey, I managed to get here. It's for a reason. I'm not going to feel so like I can do it. I can't just wing it. I tried my best to practice, and then I did nail it, but it was because I had to forget for the 20 minutes that I was on stage of all those nerves. But I get nervous all the time.
Sounds like you overcome it though.
Yeah, I love putting myself in a very complicated situation so I can achieve something else. Putting myself out of my comfort zone is something that I do consciously. Otherwise, there's no growth. I hate complacency. I fucking hate it when people aren't doing new things, especially when it comes to me. Again, is the age thing. Like, I know I'm so young. Why am I not doing things that scare me? And why am I pushing myself back? If you're being complacent and you're not moving forwards, then you're actually moving backwards. That is a lesson that I had to see my friends go through, my family, or like even entrepreneurs that I see that just like stay. They do something, they have a big launch, they have a big win, they did the TED Talk, they don't do anything else. for me, again, momentum is everything. And while the pendulum's still swinging, why am I slowing it down? If I tried so hard to get it moving at the start, my younger self would kill me if I stopped and if I didn't do things that were new or scary, because those things will always, always, always lead to the better outcome that I'm actually looking to achieve.
The solution to imposter syndrome, I feel like, is there is no solution. You're looking for it, because if you don't have that, then you aren't actually doing something new. So maybe it's a framing situation here where it's not necessarily something that we need to overcome. It's like, well, if you don't feel it, then are you doing anything new?
Yeah. It was always reframe. Like I reframe nerves for excited.
Yeah, it's my favorite thing. It really works.
Yeah, it does. I started doing that like a few months ago, and I'm like, no, I'm not nervous. I'm just very, very excited.
Let's go.
Yeah, let's go. Otherwise, if I'm not feeling like that, then I don't think I'm in the right place.
Mm-hmm. No, I couldn't agree more. When you look back, it's funny. Like we've been in it for 2 years. Like I've been posting for a year. You've been in it for 2 years. This is such a small amount of time. But even in the last 6 months, so much has changed. The last 12 months, even more. Like I'm thinking in my world, ghostwriting, AI has completely changed everything, because it's made a situation where I can bring massive transcript and I can get AI to point out things which would have taken me hours to read. That really accelerated that process. So my question is more forward looking. Like where do you see personal branding evolving?
I think, honestly, back to it's very much fast roots, which is community offline. As you see it over time, as you probably know more than me, people are craving community more than ever, especially online. All these AI things, they work and it makes our life so easy. But the thing that would add to it would be clients, if we're talking about ghostwriting specifically, doing more things offline. So then we have more unique elements to add to the online. One of the main reasons why I do so many events is not for leads, as we kind of argued about yesterday. It's the content.
Yeah.
I have more things to talk about. One of the main questions people ask me is like, Lara, I don't have anything to talk about. Haven't been featured in Forbes like you. I don't go to all these events. And I'm like, go then. Why are you not going? No one's invited me. Invite yourself. You can literally buy a ticket. Oh, but like I don't have friends that are in the industry. You can buy your ticket to a networking community. Like all of these things we're able to do via using AI and the internet, and then we can leverage that to do offline things that we can then talk about online. Something that's super interesting to me is the rise of the running clubs that we've seen online. And my bet as to why these things are working so well is because people go to these events not because of the running itself. Maybe the majority of most of them would be, but some of them would only go because they saw it on social media. They want to post about it on social media, talk about it on social media, create content for social media. And then that actually expands the reach to more people. It is such an interesting dynamic, because ideally every single person that runs, they post it on social media because you have to. Like it's almost like a law. Or like if you do a high rocks, if you do a marathon, and then you're able to reach the 20 people that you meet in the running club, then you get to reach 20,000 more people on social media. Then you get to expand yourself, talk about more things, meet so many other people that are interested in all these other things. And it's like a cycle. So people get stuck in the I don't have anything to talk about. Then you have to get out, do cool stuff, talk about them as well. That's what I did at the start. I was traveling 4 hours back and forth from Exeter to London just to go to a networking event for 2 hours so I could have something new to talk about on my LinkedIn besides copywriting tips that everybody was talking about.
Yeah. I mean, I've used this in my content so much, so I can't second this enough. Touching on events for the sake of content, or I guess using an event for content. If we go a bit more practical now, what's the best way to use the fact that you went to an event, and how would you communicate that?
So always know and always be prepared to take a photo. Like you need to either find a photographer, get them to take photos of you, because at the end of the day, the reason why I would go is because they had a camera. I didn't have a camera because I couldn't afford it. They took candid photos of me talking to people. Then I could look cool online. That is the game. Yeah. Maybe I had the worst time at the networking event, but I was there and I could be associated with the idea of the networking, the privilege, the authority. Maybe I spoke about something cool. Maybe I was a panelist and no one knew. Like all of these nuances that go included in that. So I would say if you're just starting out, go to networking events, make sure you have 3 key people of interest that you can speak to so you feel comfortable and safe. So you can land something, maybe you can land a client, or just simply land a friend, which is probably the most powerful thing for me. Just having those connections that have served me so well, whether it's as friendships or like just as connectors. And then after that, try and get photos. If you take a photo with a friend or by yourself, and then online, then go sum it up. Just, I see so many people doing this now. It makes me really happy. Like, I just went to this expo, here's what I learned. Yeah. And they talk about their learnings. It's such a simple gateway to practicing your writing, gaining more friends that went to the event but maybe didn't see you, and connecting with them because you already have similar interests, and then reaching more people outside of that network because these new people are like now in your network. People don't like, I love networking events because they are pivotal to how you're positioned, but you need to be talking about them online because, again, networking events, you have 3 hours to meet all these people. You can't make that many connections at scale or impact, right? If your LinkedIn is already primed to make a really good first impression, you maybe already made one as well. They added you, then they go and find a little bit more about you. Then that leads to either higher income, like rewards, than just showing up, leaving, and then giving them your card, right? It is now networking events and social media go hand in hand, and then actually kind of like exacerbate how you are on offline. The thing that I love the most is like, if I went to a networking event, then I see people that went to that networking event, but I didn't get to meet them, then just because they made a post about it, I get to find them. Yeah. It makes it so much easier to then again connect with people that are interested in what you're interested. People hate LinkedIn right now because they are being shown content that is not relevant to them. I was on a panel the other day and they're like, oh my God, LinkedIn is full of shit right now. And I'm like, you're letting it be full of shit because you have connections from last year, from your other job, your ex-girlfriend, whatever, and they're polluting your feed. But you can easily just go away and find these new people that could bring so much value to your life, and you can actually enjoy your experience on LinkedIn. It's not that LinkedIn is bad, you're making it bad for yourself.
Yeah, the 2 points there. So the first point on like doing an event, like I've had this with clients and myself where the post about the event, I sometimes like tag people in the comments and thank them, but then because the event is happening, people who went to the event usually check LinkedIn, then they see the post, and then people reach out. That's another amazing hack. Like you're posting full, so everyone who was at the event who didn't get to speak to you. The angle of sharing why, what I've learned, such a small difference, but a lot of people just say, I went to this event, it was great. Cool, but like, tell me something.
I'm so excited to announce that we went to this event and we got our thing, and it's like, no one cares.
Just tell me what you learned, and is it a good event? That's another thing. Like, you don't have to actually say what you learned. You can say, would I recommend this event because of X, Y, Z? And then you're like, oh, cheers, Gary. Thank you for telling me. And
totally.
Yeah, the thing on the events is just, it's super powerful. And the point you made about not going in there thinking you have to network with everyone. I think that's a big thing that I used to do. So I used to do like 15 minutes, boom, connect, see you later. But if you just did it with 3-4 people rather than the 50 that were there, it's a lot better.
Yeah, it works for me so well. I went to this event at SEMrush and I just didn't have the mental capacity to be like, hi. So I just went away, sat down with some people that I hadn't spoken. Like we spoke about things for like an hour. I remember that person. That person and I are friends now. They're going to introduce me to a business partner like in a few weeks, right? I don't think I could have done that with like, hi, how's it going? I'm your LinkedIn type. We had to sit down and have like a meaningful, in-depth conversation. And maybe here's like my introvert being just introverted and like not really being willing to be around too many people at the same time. But that benefits me. It's like my unfair advantage because I'm looking for deep conversation rather than like baseline connections.
Perfect. Before we wrap up, I have a question. You've got this success. You've got like 210K followers, a business that's working. But then during the podcast, you told me about how you're working a lot. Maybe not even sleeping sometimes to work more. Why are we doing all this? What's the goal here?
Like overall, like why am I working so hard?
Because I'm asking this also for me as well, because it comes to a point where it's like, wait a minute, why am I doing all this? Yes, we like to see number go up, but like, why is Lara doing all this work?
There's two answers. One of them, I like the process of who I'm becoming through work. The more work I do, the better person I become, the more intelligent I can get, the more people I can meet, the better connections I get to achieve, the better lifestyle I can provide for myself, which means that I am just growing and I'm becoming the person that I always wanted to become through work. And I think that's why I'm so addicted to it, because it's consistently progressing as a person instead of being stagnant and not doing anything and settling for what it is. So that's what's made it addictive. Like the dopamine I get from like the long form, look at me now type, like I'm so proud of, I'm able to speak on camera, I'm able to close deals, I'm able to do this because I'm consistently doing the thing. That's one. But realistically, long form like goal is always bring back the impact to Mexico. I was thinking about this because I always get this question. I never know how to answer. Like, I part of me wants to be happy and I want to make my parents proud. But subjectively, I'm already happy. My parents are already proud. But one thing that I left Mexico with, and I forgot completely because I've been too stuck in the trenches, is I just want to make Mexico a better place at some point. Whether it is as a politician, whether it's as an investor, whether it's as like a spokesperson for Mexico, I just know that every single thing that I'm doing right now will compound for me to having more leverage in the end to come back and have some sort of impact in the country that like raised me. I think I am very much oriented to always thank where I first started. And I always find it very confusing on how could Mexico be such a beautiful place with such horrible state in like politics and crime. And I've always wanted to be a politician. No one knows this, but I wanted to be in politics, but my parents were like, fuck off. Like, no, you're not. And I think the best way for me to bring back that goal is become as best known and successful as I can, as knowledgeable as I can possibly have so much leverage that ultimately when I feel ready, I can make that move and make Mexico like a better place ultimately. I think that's what I'm doing it for.
That's so cool.
Thanks.
I have a similar thing I want to do, yeah. That's why I came here.
So
I wanted to come here to be with the fam, but also my ultimate goal is to have like mini businesses around Larnaca. And to your point, just make, in my case, like Larnaca better, but that will of course mean I still need to do well, add impact, make a business. My life will be good, but just the idea of making the hometown better.
Yeah.
And I had the same thought initially where I was like, oh, I might become a politician. I've now veered to, I'll do the business thing instead.
You realize over time that politicians don't really do much. They just speak, and actions speak louder than words.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have actually leverage, again, whether it's money or connections, then you can actually do double the impact without having to be a politician.
See this in the US, so many of the people who just about to be elected or get important positions aren't from a political background anymore. And I think it's because of what you said. They have either the money, which they've made because they've done something in the world, or the connections. Yeah. So now I'm very excited to see what happens in 10 years in Mexico.
Presidents of Mexico and Cyprus.
Yeah, it's like, hey. That would be cool.
We'll make LinkedIn the social media of choice.
Make LinkedIn great again?
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Lara, thank you so much. This was great. What should people do? Should people come follow you on LinkedIn? Is there anything coming up?
Just follow me and I'll see. Lara Acosta everywhere. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.